Many might consider that a big change, one Mickey favors.
What happens when you
Oh, they're chit-chatting?
No, I hit record, but we still got a couple of minutes.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, I can hear someone talking, but I'm not hearing too clearly. So.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
There we go. That sounds a lot clearer. Who's testing? And I can hear you. Sounded like Travis, maybe.
No, it was. It's Neil Treaster. Thanks, Paul.
Hey, Neil.
Neil's got that fancy microphone.
Yeah. In case woodworking doesn't pan out, I can be a disc jockey.
There you go. It's amazing how many skills we need to be woodworkers, huh?
Well, hello. I finally got everything working here. Well, part of it. At least I've got the sound.
Who's that?
This is Jane.
Hi, Jane.
Hi.
Welcome. Welcome. And all the rest of you. We'll be getting going in just a minute.
Ed Ducharme from Santee.
Oh, cool. All right. I think when we get going doing this sort of thing at the shop, we'll have people's faces up on the big screen, and that way we'll be able to see who's participating. And remind me to talk about that when we get going as well. All right, it's about 10 o'clock, isn't it? So whenever you're ready, All right, good morning and welcome to our Saturday morning hand tool SIG on Zoom. We've changed the location a little bit because I really didn't want to drag everything that I need to show you today into the shop, because then I would have had to undo everything that I'm doing and take it out again. So I'm here in my what laughably passes for a shop. It's pretty small and pretty basic, but one of the things that I've found since I started woodworking is that I've acquired a lot of tools and my space has become very cluttered, and my hand tools are kind of up on the wall and in some cabinets and spread out throughout the garage here on the walls mostly. And I wanted to kind of centralize my ability to store and use those tools. So that's part of what this today's presentation is about. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But before I do that, I wanted to cover a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to take this off. First of all, I got vaccinated, got my first vaccination a little over a week ago. So I'm on track for beginning to be able to rejoin the human race. And hopefully we've been talking about this, but hopefully we'll be moving this SIG to a hybrid presentation where people who live locally or choose to drive can come in and join us in the shop. And I'm really looking forward to that because, you know, having people with you and getting eye-to-eye contact and so on is a lot more interactive and you know, a lot more what a special interest group is really about, in my opinion. So that's something that we look forward to doing it as a hybrid, where we can also have, if you live in Valley Center, you can still check in with us and watch what we're doing. So, and that's something that may be a sort of theme that runs through some of our, you know, our more popular SIGs and maybe all of them eventually. But anyway, we're working on that. The other thing I want to mention before we get into the rest of this is Sharpening Stones. As you know, I'm doing a little sharpening class as our first time as a sharpening class in a few weeks' time. And one of the things that's come out of that is that Gary managed to persuade the Norton Company, who, if you don't know it, they kind of set a standard for sharpening equipment. Their water stones, you know, are predictably high quality. And unless you're going to spend a lot of money on a Japanese stone, they're a very good investment. And they've got some new products, and they donated a couple of those to us that to show off. So one of the first things is, I don't know about you guys, I have some real challenges with water and using water stones and water on the bench. The reason my bench is not terribly pretty, a lot of that is little filings of iron that have got into the bench top from sharpening, because I've given up on things like this, which when you get it wet, they're porous. Of course, once you cut through them, they're extra porous, but they really, they hold a grip, but they're not really that good at holding down. You can still slide them a little bit. Norton sent us a number of, and I'll talk about those, a number of these mats that I think they're silicone, but they've been printed in a way that it's like it's woven, and they are just really outstanding. They're hard to push your stone across the floor with, plus the water that leaks over the side of the stone gets contained in the little bits of the weaving, as it were, and you're able to roll it up or curl it up and wash it off under a tap and go with it straight away. So it's a bench saver, and it works with almost any stone. It'll work with a stone directly on it really well. I like to put them on a plinth because then I can work the side of the stone fairly easily. So I just wanted to introduce that and to tell you that they gave us enough of these that, and they want us to give them some feedback about whether they work or not. I've just give you a quick demonstration and my personal opinion, but if you would like one of these, they're retailing at about 18 bucks, but they've given us a number of them. And if you'd like one of them, please leave your name in the chat room, and I will put one with your name in the shop. And we will also be making them available to the shop members with a sign-up sheet, just putting them out there. But the price, as it were, is that we would ask that you send me or Gary some feedback about how you find this mat, because I've given up on mats by and large, but I think I'm going to keep the one that I'm testing because it really is a nice mat. And if you needed to cut it into smaller pieces, you could do that for smaller stones or for under each stone. The other nice plus about it is that it's just about the size of a standard stone. So you could have 2 or 3 alongside each other. So,
hey, Paul,
yes.
are you sure this just isn't a ploy to get more correspondence because you're feeling lonely during the pandemic?
What, you mean the freebie thing?
Yeah, write me an email, he says, or tell me a story about how you used it, how you like it.
Yeah, tell me your life story. Yeah, but no, Norton have asked us to give feedback, and we are hoping that by giving feedback, they'll begin to use this as a bit of a test bed for their products, which I'm going to demonstrate a couple of other products they donated now. Well, not demonstrate, but show you. For some years,
Actually, Paul,
yes.
Didn't they give us a discount for ordering from them?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't think so. At this point, they've merely given us a donation worth several $100. So
Okay.
I think it's the beginning of what I hope will be a nice relationship.
Okay.
And I'm sure that Gary's got that in mind. So anyway, several years ago, when I was in a carving class, I discovered ceramic stones and was a convertee fairly quickly. Not for all sharpening, but for the fine sharpening, the stuff that puts a nice polish on your edge. And for carving tools in particular, they're really good because unlike a water stone, you don't dish this out or carve gouge, or, you know, when you do something like this on a water stone, you really dig a hole in that stone. So then you have to flatten it, and it doesn't last a whole lot of time. So this is equivalent to somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000 grit, and I use it a fair amount. I especially like it because you don't need any water or oil or anything in order to work it. It's because it's very fine grit, and I recommend these for the very fine grits. Because it's fine grit, it's not very aggressive. It doesn't take a whole lot of metal off with each stroke, but it's really good for getting that really good polish on the edge, getting a nice clean edge on your blades. Anyway, Norton have a new product that is a new ceramic stone. They're currently selling it in the ultra fine, which is the same, which is equivalent to this guy. They're selling that on, who's selling them? I think Highland Woodworking. I'm not sure. There's a couple of companies that have been picked to sell them, and they're selling them at about 150 bucks. They donated us the ultra fine, 2 of the ultra fines and 2 of the fines. The fine is equivalent to maybe something like 3,000 grit, something like that, and is a little bit more aggressive. They're, these are nice because they're actually big enough to put a large plane blade on them. They're insanely flat. You will not find a flatter surface. They've been machined flat. Maybe the bottom of a Lee Nielsen plane when you buy it is going to be just as flat, but they're really nice, very good. They were. I put like an 1¼ inch chisel on it on the 3,000 grit equivalent, and rapidly discovered that it wasn't as flat on the back as I thought it was. So it's a lot flatter. Is somebody asking a question there? No? Okay. Okay, so they sell them in two, or they will be selling them in 2 grits, the ultra fine and the fine. I've tried ceramic stones from other brands on the Corsa, and they're just not aggressive enough. So I use diamond stones for those. But anyway, we will probably we'll be using these in the sharpening classes, and we may well put one of the sets out in the shop. But they are, I have to say, a really nice product. And if you're somebody who actually would like to spend, this is like a lifetime product. Apparently, they will not dish out. This brand will dish out eventually. It is possible to wear them. Norton say these just simply won't wear. And I don't know how much sharpening you do, but to me, that's enormous. And really good for getting that fine edge. The other beauty is no mess. You can keep it on the bench, keep it on your new Norton pad, and use it right there. You might need a plinth or put it on another one, but really, really nice stones. Okay, so enough of the, it's not a sales pitch, but you know, if the companies are kind enough to donate stuff to us and ask them to give us a bit of feedback, I have no problem with that. If it relates to the hand tool issues, then, which it does, then give it a little push. So anyway, if you want one of these mats, let me know. And as I say, your only obligation is to give a very quick, you know, short 1-paragraph assessment of it to me or Gary. You know, Gary might be as lonely as I am. Okay, so moving right along. As you guys might have noticed, we're just here in a garage. It's a multi-purpose room. We use it for storage. We use it to keep the garbage cans in, which gives it a lovely aroma at times. We have emergency equipment and dog crates and all sorts of stuff in here. So my shop has taken a disproportionate amount of the room up, and has become very cluttered because everything ends up on the walls. And I'm just sitting here spending a lot of time in this room working during the pandemic. I just thought I want to tidy things up a little bit. So I thought about a tool chest, tool boxes, tool hanging wall cabinets, and so on. There are some limitations to that. And what I did was I sort of said, what do I really, really want in a tool chest? And so it's got to be able to hold all of the tools that I need or pretty much all the tools I need to handle it. Doesn't have to have any machinery in it. I should be able to access all of the tools that are in that box or chest or whatever it is, that storage container. I should be able to access them all at the, instantly or close to instantly while I'm working, and it should be easy to work from. It should be on wheels so I can roll it around, because I am in a garage where a car comes in here every night. Where I'm standing is where the bumper of my wife's car is every night. So my bench rolls up against the wall, and everything has to be cleared out here. So it must be able to, if I'm working up, if I need the daylight and I'm working up near the front, I want my tools to be right there. So it must roll. it must be made, I wanted it to be made out of wood because I got lots and lots of sharp tools, and it's for storing those. So I don't want the container to damage the tools themselves. It's got to be strong, durable, and important, dust and humidity resistant. It must be flexible because unlike many tool chests that have an absolute single place for every single thing, my tastes change. You know, I might be making chairs where I want to use spoke shaves more, you know, use different tools. So I need to be able to have a little bit of flexibility in my use of it and change where I put things over time. And I wanted it to be, if I ever have to move or get it to you know, a second home or whatever, I'd like to be able to get it up and if necessary, get a forklift underneath it. And that's purely personal because I used to work with forklifts a lot, and I think they're amazing tools. And I wanted to really, you know, I'm into hand tools. I wanted to really use those tools in the in making it. So I looked around and looked at Japanese toolboxes. I looked at some of the fancier wall hanging boxes. There's a really nice Dutch box out there that's pretty nice, but it's kind of tall and thin and might be easy to push over. And I ended up, I remembered a few years ago, I read this book, which is not a Bible, but I read this book, The Anarchist's Tool Chest. And what Chris is into, Chris Schwartz is the author, and he's into really going back almost to medieval times, looking at what's worked for carpenters and joiners for hundreds and hundreds of years. And he takes a very pragmatic approach. So if a nail is the best thing for the job, then a nail it is. But at the same time, he takes a lot of pride in doing good woodwork joinery. And he came up with a design for a very traditional chest that we're going to move into a slideshow, a brief slideshow, a few construction photos and so on. But basically, the chest, when I read through the book and read about the chest, it seemed to cover most of the bases that I needed to cover. So I decided to make it on the basis that I could pass it on if need be. And I've since found that they can sell for a fair amount of money. So even if I'm unhappy with it, then I'm sure I can pass it on to someone. Anyway, so I researched that and I decided, what the heck, I'm going to give it a go. It fitted all my criteria. I wanted to make it out of wood. You know, obviously there's some hardware. It has 112 dovetails in it, and I wanted to use solid wood. You can make the same version in about 5 hours in plywood. So those of you who like to do that, if Dallas is watching, then you could do the same thing if you wanted to. But if you want to spend, you know, 40 to 50 hours of time making one, then you know, if that's your thing, then it's a fun piece to make. So we're going to run into the slideshow, and I'm going to talk about dovetails a little bit, and we'll proceed with that in just a moment. And then I'm going to fill the chest up. I'm going to show you the chest I made and fill it up with the tools and show you that it works. So anyway,
Hey, Paul,
bear with us about, yes.
did you literally build exactly what was in the book, or did you do a variation on it?
Very minor variation, but I decided, you know, one of the things Chris Schwartz, another very good book he makes is the Anarchist design book. And he really wants you to design for yourself, but using parameters that will make something that works. And I actually followed his design pretty darn closely. I made some very, very minor changes, but because I've never made a toolbox by myself before, I didn't really know what I need. And I've already got ideas for changes. And the beauty of this thing is it gives you the flexibility to make those changes. So I went with that, and if I need to make another one, I will. But when you look at the inside, you'll see that it lends itself to some changes if I need to. So are we with this? Okay. So as you can see, the first thing I needed to do was to make the panels for the 4 sides of the box. So I went through that, and you can see there I glued them together, and then I planed them. This was at the point the shop was closed. So, and the pieces I was working were more than 20 inches wide. So even if I'd been able to use the planer at the shop, it wouldn't have been available to me because it's too big. So these had to be hand planed. It's poplar, so it's pretty soft and was easy to plane, but a very good way to get them flat. So let's move to the next slide.
Hey, Paul, just for a quick question for Lewis.
Yes.
Can we do landscape to make these a little bit bigger? They're kind of a very small part of our screen.
Can we turn it sideways? Can we make it landscape? Because they're not seeing very clearly.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Is that better for you guys?
Much
Cool.
bigger.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. And then I'll see if I can get the same here. Oh, no, I've lost it completely, Lewis. Sorry. So anyway, the next one is, as you can see, once I plane those boards, wonderful. Yeah, fantastic. Once I plane those boards to flat, that's what I had. And let's move to the next slide. Okay, so the next thing is to dovetail all the ends. Now, the reason it's dovetailed top to bottom is to, there you go. Oh, we're getting in close. Is to ensure that, you know, if you have a 22-inch, 24-inch wide plank, it's going to move. It's going to bow and bend with the different humidity. And this thing had already bowed out 1/8 of an inch after I had spent time, 24 hours after getting it perfectly flat. And that's quite normal for wood. When you do the corners as dovetails, the dovetails bring it all together and they keep it all together. So you don't have to, you get a really strong edge, and unlike a mited edge, it doesn't have end grain that's going to dry over time and shrink away from the ends. It's going to bind together. So the whole thing is put together with dovetails. And the first thing I had to do was do a rabbet. Some people do that with dovetails. I found it to be very helpful if I really want my dovetails to work. So put a tiny rabbet there, which helps in doing the set out and helps holding it together at the end. Let's move to the next one. Okay, so there it's just having some dovetails cut. So these are the tails being cut. There's 13 tails on that board. So it you know, you just get into the zen of it. So let's move to the next one. Okay, and those tails are complete. And I've got the one where I've got the pin board marked down there, which I'm just about to mark out, or I have just marked out. So once I've marked out the pin board, then I'll cut it, which is on the next slide. There you can see both of them. The pins are cut on both the ends there, and we'll move on to the next slide.
How many total dovetails again?
112.
Wow.
Okay, so a couple of things to note about this. First of all, you can see it. One of the innate features of a dovetail is if you cut them right, they automatically they bind the tails, bind the ends, bind the pin parts to them, so you don't have to clamp those if you've done it right. And they really automatically bring those boards to square. Those of you who've tried clamping frames where you've got 4 corners and you're clamping them all at the same time, it's challenging. It can be really fiddly, and you pour sweat on it, and that gets in the way of your glasses. And so anyway, it's a dovetail. When you do this, it's kind of less stressful because you only have to clamp on the 2 sides. And as you can see, it brings it us naturally to a square. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, so there it is glued up. I always cut my tails and pins just a little longer than I need so that I can clean up afterwards and get a nice edge. And you'll notice that I haven't put a finished planing or anything on the, oh yeah, no, very, very little sandpaper. And absolutely, I haven't used my RO sander for about 6 months now, but very little sandpaper, mostly scraped. And let's move to the next one. So once those pins are done, then you use a flush cut saw to cut the ends off and get it close, and then we can plane the whole surface, including the fronts. So okay, great, we moved on. That's great. So then the bottom is nailed on. Okay, that's not joinery, but the beauty of when you nail something on the bottom of a chest, you can see the bottom it's all rabbited so that those as the wood expands and contracts, you're not going to get gaps in the floor of the thing. And you've got those 3 pieces across there, which give it additional strength. Plus, if you live somewhere damp or they get damp and rot out, piece of cake to undo them. I actually use screws on these, but he would recommend nailing the bottom of the board, and get the book if you want to know why. But I chose to do screws. But as you can see with those cross pieces, if they get wet, they're going to be the first thing to get wet. You can change those out, change those 3 pieces. You've got, a new chest bottom. If the bottom itself gets rotten, you can pin it off without taking the whole chest to pieces. And you could use blocks to get a forklift under there once it's got a skirt. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so this is its first use as a saw bench, upside down. I started cutting the pieces, just doing the rough cuts for the edges and the skirts and so on going around it. So let's move on. Okay, we're good on time. Okay, so you can see down there that there's the bottom skirt is on there. So that's level with the bottom of those 3 cross pieces. So that gives you additional strength. The skirts themselves are dovetailed. So, and they're glued and they're nailed with traditional cut nails. And there's a reason for using cut nails and not your modern brad nails. And again, it's in the book there. I just don't have time to tell you right now.
Hey, Paul, is the skirt for aesthetics?
No, it's for protection.
Okay.
It's absolutely for protection. This is going to be wheeled around my shop for the next, well, I'm going to live for another 50 years. So we'll say the next 50 years. So it's going to get beat up. It's going to get dinged. It's not designed to stay looking pretty. And so it's got skirts around the bottom. It's got skirts around the top. It's up at the top. There's a dust seal, and that's all part of the skirts there. Not skirt, well, whatever you call them. But yes, they're absolutely, they're a vital part of the design of a traditional chest. The difference is some traditional chests would be more quickly put together with mitered ends on those skirts. Those would tend to split open over the years, whereas the dovetails will be a bit more resistant to that. So the chest's close to complete. The lid's made there. There's still the dust seal, the matter of the dust seal to go in, but let's move on to the next one. All right, so now I'm using that same shoulder plane to put bevels up on that skirt around the top there. And let's move on to the next one. Initially, I wanted to paint it with milk paint because milk paint, you paint it on and it still shows the texture of the wood underneath. So you'd still see the dovetails and all that fun stuff. But I wasn't happy with the milk paint. I couldn't get the even finish that I wanted. And the author described going through exactly the same process. So I ended up painting it green. But the interior is just raw poplar, or partly raw poplar, a little bit of oak and some maple in there. But it's just raw poplar finished with a little shellac, just to give it a little protection there. Okay, moving on. Okay, so the next step was to make the drawers. And again, they're dovetail. They're not drawers really, they're trays, but they act as drawers. You could make a cabinet that would fit nicely and slide back and forth with drawers going out both ways and so on. But that has its advantages and disadvantages, and flexibility, I think, would be the main thing. If you have a cabinet like that with tiny little narrow drawers, everything has to have its place. So again, dovetail drawers, again, because they're going to be moving back and forth. So the tails are in the direction where they're going to help keep it together as you get those pull strains on the dovetails.
Yes.
All right, next one, please. That's it. Okay. Yes, the last one didn't load up. Okay, so let's move to the chest itself. I'll move this a bit more to the center. Oh no, we're good with this. Kind of not a very good background, but. So this is the finished article, and as you can see, it's got, yes.
Is it filled with gold coins?
Say again?
Is it filled with gold coins?
Is it filled with, oh, it's just full of treasure. Absolutely. Open it up, it's gonna just gush out. I put, you know, but you point out the gold there. I put a little gold trim on there because I thought it would look nice, and I think it looks horrible. So I'm probably gonna just paint over it. But anyway, the differences are I put a handle on the front because I've got arthritic fingers and it helps to open it up. But here is the finished article, and it is, as you can see, it's unfinished on the inside or unpainted on the inside, but nicely painted on the outside. And it has 3 of these drawers, which I'm going to take out because my next step is going to be to fill it with tools, and we'll start at the bottom and work upwards. The nice thing about these drawers is that they slide back and forth on runners, and so that although they're trays, they act like drawers, open top drawers. You could call them Swedish drawers because the Swedes do open face sandwiches. Okay, that wasn't very funny. All right. Okay, so now we have the chest without drawers in. So in the bottom here, we have all the heavy stuff and things that maybe you do use, you know, you might use different ones of each day. So for example, my planes will go down here, and as I need them at the beginning of the day or the beginning of the time I'm working, I'll pull them out and put them on the bench, but then put them back in here at night time. All of my drills and so on will go down here. And this is a ready-made saw till. That's a special storage for the saw. So I'm going to start with slightly better lighting there. Huh? So start by putting, one of the things about this chest, and one reason why the drawers are long rather than side to side, is that as a furniture maker, working with hand tools, you're going to use some biggish tools. And if your drawers slide this way and that way, it's hard to get a saw that's over 30 inches long out of that without taking the drawers out. So the saw till, you can fill it with whatever you want, but what I've got is 2 fairly coarse toothed, one cross cut, one rip cut, and they go opposite ends to each other, and they fit down in the saw till. And what the till does is it safely stores it while making it accessible.
Is it
And
2 saws per slot?
No, it's one saw per slot. So there's only 4 slots there.
Okay.
Okay. So the next thing, and this is a slight modification. Now I've got my saw. You know, before I put the saws in, I should have put the stuff that goes in there. Excuse me, this is a mistake. So there are a few things, there's a little space under the saw. So there's a few things I'm going to store in there. One is my Veritas Mark II honing guide, because I want some sharpening equipment to be in there. So I'll put that down there. And then if you own a saw and you use it a lot and it's European style, you need some sharpening equipment. So these are saw sets. They set how wide the teeth are. And they can just go down there. They'll only very occasionally get used. But I know where they are when I need to sharpen my saws. Okay, so that's that. A square. Oh, my saws need to go back in, don't they? I'm getting discombobulated. And there are a couple of things that go down in that other compartment as well. As you can see, you can begin to use all the space.
Well,
Yes.
you said that you used the design pretty much from the Anarchist's tool chest, but when it came to how you used the space, was that your imagining of it, so that it was your shop poured into it rather than just fitting in it the way it was designed?
Yes, it to some degree, yes. I don't use all of these saws that frequently. I probably might not put all of them in right now, whereas he has a design for, his design is pretty much this. So the interior is pretty much that same design, which is a traditional design. So those three drawers, or that principle of high storage and low storage, and keeping the planes down the bottom and stuff like that is very traditional. So I did pretty much follow his interior design here. And, I can make modifications, things like this divider can be removed. You can see how much dust has already accumulated, and I can change the height of that. I can use it for different things. I could move these because they're screwed in. These are a bit more difficult. They're just nailed in, but these runners are made out of oak, so they're nice and tough for the rails. But yeah, it's pretty much the same design as he puts in there. I figured I'm just going to follow his design because he's established it, he's worked it out, he's got some wisdom going there. So I'll follow his, and then as I work with this, I'm going to change it. That's part of the joy of being a woodworker, is you have the ability to do things like that. So the next thing, I've got saws in here. Next thing I'm going to do is put all my drills and stuff in the back. So I got a 16 set of drill bits here that go from 1/16 up to 15/16 in 16th increments. Couple of braces. Now, in Charles's design, he puts his molding planes in there. I'm not that sophisticated yet. Okay, so another little modification I made was to add somewhere to keep my dividers. They got to be kept in here. I like to keep them nice and sharp. So there's a little spot down here where I can hang the dividers and they won't come to any harm at all. Then I have a couple of calipers. One is digital, and that will fit nicely down into the spot there. One is what you call analog and fractional, so that'll fit nicely down there. Couple more pieces of drills that I can use. All right, and now for the fun part, planes. Oh, I'm gonna put a square in here before I get to the planes. And then I made this. This is a modification I made. This is my 3-foot rule and straight edge. And it fits nicely in there. And now I can put a 2-foot rule in the trough that it creates. And I can also put in my other support, which is purple because otherwise it looks like a piece of scrap wood and I'll lose it. So, but this is how I generally work, but the chain gives me the backup. Today we're going to use the chain first because it's easier to film that way. And I can just slot that down in there and that's nicely put away. Planes. So, what does a woodworker need? Starts off with the biggest plane that I have, anyway, is a number 6. I've just not done things big enough to need a bigger jointing plane than that, but you could get a number 8 in here, which we've got one, I think, a 7 or an 8 at the shop, and it's enormous. Anyway, so there goes your number 6. A number 5.
Hey, Paul, can you remind us how the numbers are done? Is it the width of the opening, or what's the 5, 4, 6, whatever?
Okay, so the The one is the smallest. These are bench planes, so planes that are 45 degrees. And the one is the smallest. The 8 is the biggest. The 8 is about 3 feet long. It's the length of it that really matters. The frogs, everything else are pretty much the same size. You get wider and lower, you know, as they get bigger, the blades tend to get a little wider. But there are also, like, if there is a wide version of this plane available, it's a 4.5. So it's a little wider than this, a little heavier in the body. But this is a number 4, which is your standard smoothing plane, the one, you know, everyone thinks of in terms of the standing plane. So it goes 8, 7, and they all have different names. You know, the 8's a jointer, and the 7 is I can't remember, triplane. The number 5 is a jack plane, and again, depends what region, what country you're in as to what the name is. But they basically the bigger the surface you're trying to make flat, the bigger the plane you want to do it, because that extra width is also good for creating something that's flat, because you can cut across and create a flat surface that way, as well as creating flat surface along the.
Thank you, Paul.
So anyway, so it goes down in size. A number 4 is really nice. A number 3, I love this because it's light and it's almost as wide as the number 4, and it's easy to use and use it a lot. So there's a number 3 in here. And then there's the low angle planes, which I've shown before. Oh, got some water on that. I'm gonna have to clean that up afterwards. So that's a number 5, as was the one previous. That's commonly called a jack plane. And if you're going to buy one plane to do all sorts of different things, get the jack plane. It means jack of all trades, and it's a really good one. And the low angle bevel up planes are really nice. So here's another low angle bevel up plane, and a modern Veritas number 4 plane. As you can see, it has a different width, so it does depend somewhat on the manufacturer, but the length is the same. So this is a number 4, and from Veritas, and this is a little smoothing plane with the bevel up again, low angle bevel up. So this is, you know, this is big brother or medium brother to the little 60.5 Lee Nielsen block plane. This is the smoothing plane version of that, and the number 5 there is the jack plane version of it. So, and then there's this number 4. Then I'm not going to put much more in the way of planes. I'm going to put in a rabbit plane down there. You can see, although I don't have separators, the bench is not going to, things are not going to move around too much. Now I'm going to put down in there, I'm going to put a set of carving tools. I'm going to put the number 3 up here. You know what, I'm going to take that one out. Put this in there because I want to get something in there. So I got one more plane that's, you've seen this in the pictures. Have to be a little careful storing this because it has sharp corners on both sides and it has nothing to protect it. So I'm going to get that down in here. Yes, did somebody have a question?
Yeah, sorry, hold on, sorry.
Hold on. Oh, okay, well, I'll keep going until you come back in again. Okay, so now I've got planes down there. I've got a lot of things that I need, and I can now move on to my next level. Okay, I'm going to keep some more saws in here. So I won't go into all the details because time is running on, but you've got a couple of dovetail saws in different sizes. You've got a tenon saw. You've got a small Japanese dovetail saw. A couple of large dovetail saws with homemade protectors because they're not going to be in a till as such. They're a little small for a till. So those are my, that's a crosscut and a dovetail saw in the Japanese stuff. I'm going to put a mallet down in there. The little flush cut saw. Put that down in there. And I'm going to put a little container with some spoke shaves in there. One of which I need to add from here. Let me know if this is getting boring and we can cut short. But
We're running a contest right now to see how many tools you load up. We have some
oh
guesses.
yes,
We have some guesses right now at 150, 170, 89, and 117. Those are the current guesses.
there's one that's close. I can't be too precise, but if one of you is counting, I meant to ask if you would, if one of you would.
Beforehand. And so we're going to see at the end how many.
Right, okay. And I did an approximate count, so I know roughly where it is. One thing I left out, or two things I left out in my lower level there are wax, which I use on the planes all the time. And, you know, it's always there for furniture as well. And a little carving mallet, which goes down with my drill stuff. Okay, so, boom, 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 boom. These were the pieces that would go down with the saws. They're just little aids to sharpening. So they would actually go down with the saw normally. The other thing that I want to put down in here before I go any further is my basic sharpening kit. So on this particular day, I'm going to put my two-sided diamond plate, Easy Lap, and the Norton 8000, and that's pretty much all I need. For most of my furniture making woodwork, that's all I need. So I want to get that down in there as well. And believe me, I had a way where they were just fitting absolutely snug. So let's go on to the next one. Anyone know what the tool count is so far? No? All right. So on this one, the drawers,
You want to give us a look before you put this drawer back in? I meant to give everybody.
oh, I know.
There we go.
Okay, as you can see, there's room to add stuff in, and most important, there's room to put bigger things in there. There's room for me to change my mind about what I want to put in there. Nothing is set in stone except the general construction. Even this little compartments, I've just glued these in place with tacky glue. It's it's finished in shellac, but it's just put together with tacky glue so I can play with the spaces and figure out what works for me. And then I'll do something a bit more permanent or come up with something that's permanently flexible. But anyway, so yeah, so there you go. You've got all those tools in there, and this doesn't go all the way across, but you have nice access to the drills down there. So I can just, and it actually ergonomically, it works pretty well because it works with your body shape and you've got somewhere to lean on here. So anyway, moving on, what are we going to put in the next one? I want to put a coping saw in the one down below. That's reasonably good. Okay, so this next one, the first thing I'm going to do is put block planes in there. So you can see I've got made cabinets and stuff over the years and little bits and pieces. I want to take all these, put them in one place or repurpose them for other things. So I want to take my special little block plane cabinet, which is over here, and take all the block planes out and put them in one spot in my toolbox. So for those of you who are new to woodwork, this is way, way more block planes than any reasonable human being should need. But some of them I made myself. Some of them are expensive. Some of them are really, you wouldn't believe what a fantastic $19 worth of plane this thing is. This little Squirrel Plane, it's a really nice little fine tuning block plane, and I got it when I was in the ukulele class, and I looked at more expensive things, asked the teacher, which should I buy? He said, "Buy that one." And
So should that be the 0.5 as opposed to a number 8 or a number 2 as a number 0.5?
No, this is a 100.
Oh, great.
Stanley put a number on everything they ever made. So rules, everything has a number, and it's all cataloged. So, you know, this is a Stanley number 70, I think. The one I'm going to get next is a 140. They broke their numbering system down into different kinds of planes. And then I got my little homemade ones. So is there one more block plane to go in there? Got a couple more things to go in there. And now I'm going to leave this space. Oh, you guys can't really see. So I'm going to move on from here. I want to put a couple of things in here. We'll put that in there, which is, again, is a shoulder plane and has a blade that's on both sides is vulnerable. And there's a little side rabbit plane. I'm going to leave this area for here because what I want to do, and this is the one thing I haven't figured out, I need to make a box for my chisels so they're easily accessible and they're going to stay safe and not get damaged. So that's something I've yet to do, but that I want to be able to remove and to put onto the bench if I need to. So because I use chisels an awful lot. So finally, the top level. So
Want to show the bottom of it?
yes, the bottoms of these, again, nailed on. There's a rabbit in the middle. They're pretty thin, but if they ever get damaged, or I drop a plane and I make a hole in the bottom, I just pry the nails off and replace it. So it's they're fairly thin, but that's all I need on the top ones. The bottom drawer has a 1/2 inch. Thank you for pointing that out. This is cherry. Rodney Allen brought me this cherry. He bought it years ago, and he saw that I was making these drawers, and he said, "I have just the wood for you." So he gave me this wood. He very generously gave me this wood, and I couldn't resist making it. Charles Schwartz recommends just using whatever's available to you at a reasonable cost. You know, he recommends pine for the box itself. Poplar was the most available wood that's somewhat similar for the box itself, and then he recommends something hard for the runners and so on. But everything is nicely stepped there. So finally, where did that other? I'm missing some stuff, and I'm wondering where it is. I may have to. Oh, I know. There's one thing.
To campfire tonight at the last, not campfire, but Gina Jolie at the last minute,
Yeah,
or go somewhere tonight for dinner?
yeah, let's do that.
Okay,
What time?
well, we're gonna have to.
Okay, so
We're gonna have to see what they.
hearing somebody's
Would that
conversation.
be your
I
first
walked
choice?
by there last night and they were packed.
Hey, Dick,
That
can we
was
join
at
dinner?
6.
All right, I've got a lot of noise in my
If they have
head.
anything,
I will.
that would be my first choice, usually.
Hey, Louis, maybe you could mute that one?
Cool, thank you. Great, I think somebody accidentally unmuted or whatever. Anyway, okay, so carrying on. The top shelf is for marking out. Those of you who are into hand tools or getting into hand tools are beginning to realize that marking out is absolutely critical with hand tool work. Your machine doesn't do those straight lines for you. You have to make sure that you mark them out. So there's a whole bunch of tools that I use for marking out, and a few sundry tools that I'm going to get in here anyway. So I'm going to put in a couple of marking gauges here. I'm going to take my wheel gauge from over here, and a little hammer for working with the block plane. So I'll put that down in here. So I've got a wheel gauge here, and then a bunch of squares. Again, I have more squares than any reasonable person should use, but strangely enough, I do use them all. So I put the larger squares over here, and then the double square, and a few different sizes of squares down here.
The measurement on this drawer, is this 1/2 the width of the opening, or is this 1/3?
It's, I think it's an overall 9 inches.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd say if only we had a ruler.
Yeah, so we'll take a look. You're just a hair over 9 inches. So I'll demonstrate it all and how to work from it in a while, but it's a little more than half that width. Plus, it doesn't go all the way because of the handles I put in. If one wanted to and put the chain on the outside, then it would go all the way. So it's a little less than halfway, which is, you look at it at first and you think that's a bit of a waste of space, but when you work with it, then you realize that it's a very good use of the space. So there's those. And let's see, what other parts do we have here? Rulers. Have an old 24-inch folding rule. This is a nice little plastic device, an inch gauge for marking lines. I've got, these are dovetail markers. I'll put those in there. I wrap these guys up, some pencils. That's what that middle compartment is for. An eraser, and so on. Couple of screwdrivers. The big one, I have to have a big one in there for the plane blades, so I may find a place closer to the bottom there, but I need a large one for there. There's some saw blades here, some coping saw blades, which I'm going to put down in here, and a pair of pincers, nail pincers, I'm going to put here.
We have a guess of 235 tools.
You've got a guess at 235. A little a cheap, $4 caliper gauge from Harbor Freight, which is really useful. A couple of little, I've got all sorts of 6-inch rules, but in particular, my favorite is this one, and a little square here. A marking knife, absolutely essential for the hand tool worker. So that has its spot here. I have a little tray with punches for nails and a Japanese awl, which is my favorite all-purpose awl. And let's see what else. Oh, bevel gauge, absolutely essential for marking out. We're nearly at the end. There's a couple of other things to put in here. These may not look like tools. They're winding sticks. If you're working, especially if you're trying to flatten wood surfaces by hand, the winding sticks are excellent because you put them at points on your board, and then you look along and you see how they are oriented to each other. And when you can look along and you see them that they're straight, then you know you're getting close to a flat surface. But you could take and look at any piece of wood and determine how much twist you've got on both sides, and take begin to get your head around what exactly you're going to have to take off in order to get it to a flat surface. So they look pretty humble, and these are pretty humble. There are some fancy ones that people make using inlay with ebony and holly and stuff like that, like we did a few weeks ago. So they go in here. They're not just sticks, they really have a place in the shop. I'm gonna add down in the thing below near where the carving stuff is, I'm gonna add this diamond plate for, it's something I used when I was first sharpening curved blades, and you can get a curved blade in there, such as this guy, and you find exactly where the right curve is, and then you can work it back and forth, and you're not just randomly trying to work it. So
Is this something you buy or something you make?
this is something that you buy. I can't remember what they cost. They're made by DMT, for probably the biggest diamond stuff manufacturer. Part, you know, they make lots and lots of diamond plates. So I'm going to put that down there. A small, simple metal protractor. I have a hard time with drawing protractors because they don't give you that flat edge here. So I like to use this little guy. I've used all kinds of different ones, and this one's pretty simple, so I use it quite a bit. And one more screwdriver. And one of the other things I should have put down below is just this little set of Arkansas stones, which I sometimes use for I used to use for my carving stuff a lot more, but I've moved on to ceramic stones, ceramic slip stones now. But anyway, I have those and I keep them. And then finally, the 12-inch rule. That can go in here. By the way, I've said this before, but there are lots of fancy rules you can get out there that have non-slip surfaces on the backside, but a piece of blue tape does the trick perfectly adequately for me. And when it wears out, I can just replace it. So love it. Okay, so as you can see, that's a beginning. What do you guys think? How many tools in there? Do you want to take a look? Oh, well, now I want to actually move the camera around to the side. And before I hear the guesses, I want to just show that I have free access to everything in here. My saws are here. My planes are here. I can bring this over here. I've now got, once I've taken my planes or drills out from there, I've got free access to, at any time, to my block planes, to my marking equipment, to my fine saws, to a mallet. And then if I do need my drills, or my dividers, which I use quite a bit, they're down in there, and there's plenty of room for variation, for adding stuff, and then I'm going to just play with these, and when I finally got the right orientation for all of these little compartments, then I'll do something a bit more settled. So that's pretty much it.
I found that sharpener at that Rockler, $65, the round one.
Yeah, 65 now. I think I paid like 19 years ago.
So our guesses are 150, 117, 180, and more recently 235 and 236. Price is Right rules are in play.
Well, I counted through and did a rough count last night, and I came up with somewhat close to the same amount of dovetails, maybe a little bit more than that, but 115 or thereabout, something like that. Is so
sorry,
117 is the winner.
Now, we're not counting screwdrivers and chisels, right? When you
I
have a
counted
roll.
all individual.
There you go.
Someone's asked you a question.
Yeah, you actually equated the number of tools to the number of dovetail joints that you did. Is that what I heard?
Yes, by pure coincidence.
That means Ed Rooster is our closest.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I was surprised. I thought it would be more. At first, I thought, well, I know I've got. When I first read about this tool chest, I didn't have the basic 40 to 50 tools that Charles Schwartz outlines that the traditional woodworker had. And when I went to make it, I thought, I've got those tools, or at least I've got most of them, and I seem to have a lot more.
Yeah, but you cleared out 2 cabinets and below your bench, right? I mean,
Yes, and I did have pegboard all along here, and most of those saws and everything hung there, and it sort of looked very businesslike, but very cluttered at the same time. And now I've got all my glue in one spot on the wall, and most of my planes, you know, this one, I'm going to find a special home for because it's a special plane. But you know, most of my planes now have have a different home that will probably be more permanent. And these cabinets are great, but I have to move my bandsaw in order to access them. Everything has to be moved to access it. With this, I can just come in the morning. I can just come in the morning, open this puppy up, take this out, and over 100 of my favorite tools are right there, and we're ready to work. So, you know, if I need to start planing or think about what planes I'm going to use, then I just reach down in here and get what I need. Once I've got a couple of those on the bench, then I can spread these boxes out and work from it. It's I'm really enjoying working from it. I was a little iffy about it at first. I thought, I don't know if all this bending and so on will do it, but it's no more than I do, you know, working around here anyway. And
Hey, Paul,
just some, yes.
can you take us back to the before and after? So everything was organized along your walls,
Yeah.
and you had some issues. One was clutter because of the
Yeah.
pegboard. Another was having to move things to use your bandsaw.
Yeah.
You obviously have the before situation changed. So some things are now off the walls and into the tool chest, which is great.
Yes.
What does that free you up to do now? Because I'm looking for motivation for why I would do this. What does it free you up to do now that you couldn't do when everything was still on the wall?
Okay, couple of things. I can put my bench up against the wall,
Okay.
which before, if I wanted to work on it when it was in place and I was working across the bench, it would be banging the tools that were hanging there because they went, you know, way down. And so that gives me a huge plus. It gives me some actual wall space, you know, just a little bit of, I can paint this wall now. You know? So it's a beginning step in trying to rationalize and get things a little more just pleasant, simple to deal with. You know, and also it's going to help me to discipline myself to keeping a reasonable amount of tools, because I think you may see some of my tools on the the wants and needs or whatever, for sale in the future, because you know I love my tools, but I don't see any use to them if they're all in storage and not available to me. You know, they're just, what's the point? What's the point in having a collection if you're not using it? So I want to really get, you know, it's got a number of functions. It helps to give me a feeling of a bit more space. I can take these cabinets and move them to somewhere and repurpose them to things that I don't have to access every single day. And I'm always going over here, and if I don't pull out my bandsaw, open those doors and then put it back in, or in fact, I've got a new orientation for the bandsaw now, and that blocks it off. So it's the beginning of a process of trying to get this more simple.
I'll ask, where might you put clamps in this tool chest?
Do you want to show him where I put the clamps?
The clamps will not be going in the tool chest.
No, not in this iteration anyway. I haven't got enough room for all of those clamps. And then there's some more clamps over here. So yeah, it'll help me to simplify things. Plus, I'm going to get rid of that. If any of you have a lifelong longing for one of these old Rockwell drill presses, it is for sale. Because it uses too much square footage. So I'm going to reduce the square footage here. But I'm already enjoying working out of the tool cabinet as well. Does that sort of answer your question?
It does. It makes me wonder also if sometime later this year you might give a class on building these.
On building the cabinet?
Yeah.
I have no objection in principle to doing that. Yes, it would be probably a thing where we met for an hour each month or whatever over a period of time. But no, you know, if there's enough interest, then you know, then definitely, you know, a floor-mounted tool chest isn't for everybody, but it's going to work for me as a working tool chest.
What we could do is extract components of this build as our SIG.
Yeah.
And do parts of like dovetails, the
shooting board, because, there's one, the most important tool a woodworker has, his bench, his or her bench, just doesn't fit in a toolbox. There's no way I can fold this baby up and fit it in any kind of toolbox. So things like my shooting board live on the end of the bench. And no, I don't see any room for it, but being realistic, I'm not going to be traveling and using this chest. I'm going to be mostly using it in here and rolling it around. But no, you can't fit everything in, or you could fit an awful lot more in here and not be able to use it as well. Ergonomically, it's really well put together. And talking of which, the final touch when you close your cabinet up is you just drop your apron down in there. And some old woodworkers apparently used to spread their apron out over the planes to keep any speck of dust that goes in there. You know, there's so much dust in your working apron anyway that you're going to get it all over. So, no, it would be a neat class to do, and I'd love to see other people doing it. And who knows, we might even be able to get a guest appearance by Charles Schwartz.
Well, just as an idea, if you were to add it to the wish list of classes that we have up on the site, when we get enough people saying, I'm interested, then it can get scheduled. So that would be a way to test what I call the market interest in having that class. And if you limited it to, say, just 4 people or something like that, it could be a very reasonable thing done maybe over the course of 4 meetings, over the course of 4 weekends or something like that.
Yes, and we could always try and talk Dallas into doing the 5-hour one with plywood.
Jane asked, what advantage does a chest have over a chest of drawers?
A chest of drawers, well, it's got a chest of drawers within it. Yeah, what advantage does it have? Well, I've been using chests and, you know, tool chests and so on for years. What advantage does it have? I can get, it would have to be an awful big chest of drawers for me to get a saw in there, you know, to get a saw that's this long into a chest of drawers. And then if I'm putting that into a drawer, that means one of my drawers has to be yay high. So that sucks up a whole bunch of space. It's I think, a matter of personal preference. And for me, at this point, I'm not going to express a preference either way. What I will say is I'm really enjoying working out of this cabinet. And I'm tempted, just because I like making things anyway, to make a Dutch tool cabinet. And we could always put it up for auction at the gift sale if we wanted to. You know, it's also, a tall chest of drawers might be a little top heavy if you're not careful about the way you load it, whereas this is never going to tip over. And it's got lots of protection, but I'm just kind of casting around for contrasts now, really. I think it would be a matter of personal choice for many people, depending what tools you use and so on. A chest may be of greater use. All right, how are we doing on time? We are about 10 after 11. Any more questions?
A couple, well, one thing, it's mobile, so you can move it around the shop to where you're working, rather than having to stretch, to move around and go back to the workplace.
Yes.
Tool. But where do you put it when your wife brings her car back?
I'm sorry, repeat that again?
Where do you put it when your wife wants her car in the garage?
Oh, which is every night. The bench goes against the wall here, and then I put it up against here. I have it just forward of where my cordless drills are, where I can still open the cabinet, and that's where it generally lives. But if I'm, you know, and if I've got the bench about where it is now, then it's right there for me to use. So it's where it'll be close to the bench during the daytime, and then over there in the corner at nighttime. And as I rearrange, I'll probably rethink the whole thing. I'm not good at visualizing a future plan, but I'm quite good at creating it organically. Although the pegboards and all of this stuff was cluttered and messy, it really worked well. All my tools are immediately to hand, which is, you know, and always have been, which is kind of the purpose behind it. But
Hey, Paul, I'm
Sure.
just curious if anybody else on this Zoom event happens to use a tool chest like that. Does anybody else have a tool chest? I mean, Dick, for instance, do you use a tool chest?
Deafening silence.
Yeah, I guess not.
Uh,
Dick, I guess he's trying to unmute himself. Just
oh,
hit
is he?
the
Okay,
space bar.
well, we'll wait. I'll
Hit the
wait.
space
I've
bar,
got all
Dick.
day. I don't even have to drive home. I really, I really enjoyed doing woodwork, so I really enjoyed making this, and I would enjoy making another one.
So Dick is unmuted. Do you use a chest, Dick?
I'm getting that.
Dick, unfortunately, you're coming across at very high pitch and we can't really understand you. All right. So can you give us a thumbs up if you do or do not? Yes to tool chest? Yes, you do. Okay. We'll look forward to
Cool.
hearing about it at another time.
Yes. Do you want to do another? Do you want to come in on the SIG one day with it? Because the part of the reason I made this was to give me a start, give me some experience with using tool chests, and see where I go from the future. And who knows, I might design my own, but going with what people have used for many centuries is great.
And frankly, Paul, that is one of the things I enjoy most, is seeing what other people have done. That's why I enjoy shop tours. But this could be a mini version of that. If we had 3 people who had done tool chests in the past, and we saw how they arranged it, what they chose to put in it, how they made it, or where they sourced it from. I mean, seriously, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just learn from other people. And we've learned a lot from you. If there were 2 or 3 other people that had tool chests, and on another SIG, we could spend 15 minutes going around the 3, that'd be amazing. That'd be so much fun.
Oh, yes, it would. Well, maybe we should put out a request for that. Yes. No, I'd really like that, because I would learn a lot. One of the things that I really like about being a member of San Diego Fine Woodworkers is I have people to bounce things off. Before I was a member, I was in here and I just read books and did things, and I didn't know if I was doing it right, doing it to the standard I should be doing it, or whatever. It's just great to hear how other people deal with things and ideas, and I love it. So yes, I'd welcome that. I'm sure we all would.
Yes.
I've got a tool chest that is a variation of what you're talking about, and I don't know if you can see any of this.
It's all below the frame, unfortunately. Oh, there we go.
It basically starts off like that. That's the chest. Instead of having the top open up,
it's on the little picture.
I slide the front off, and that becomes the workbench.
Chris, yeah. We're trying to get your pictures up on the main screen, Scott.
So that's the front. This is designed for a starter toolkit in an apartment where you can put your tools in here. You can put this down flat on the kitchen table, and then you've got somewhere to put your work on. The front has got
neat, yeah,
a drawer in the top. So you can put a few tools in that you're working with. It's got a little area at the bottom. It's got a flat thing on the top, so you can put tools in the bottom. And then
you need this, Lewis.
Yeah, no.
Hey, Chris, do you have designs for this that we could send out to the group so they could take a look at what you've done?
Yes, I've got it all written up.
Okay, great.
All right. Yeah, because that's a huge challenge that many of our woodworkers face, is the challenge of operating in a tight space. And this space is palatial compared to, I know Lewis, he's pretty much got the balcony outside his living room, and that's it. So
And the whole idea of acknowledging our space constraints is
Yeah.
what was behind Jim Strawn's low profile workbench too. That lovely little workbench that he has us build on Tuesdays about once a month. They're really,
Yeah.
really nice. And so the acknowledging of little spaces and having good solutions like what Chris was showing us and with what Jim was doing is sort of a useful thing for us to bring to our members, because everybody has to deal with these constraints. And if they don't have to reinvent the wheel by just learning from others and building something that they know works, it's a wonderful thing. So that's a pretty cool box, Chris. If you could just share the design, we'll get it out to everybody.
Yeah, I've also got another one, which is
Scott, hold that up.
a starter
Oh,
kit
yes.
for young kids, and inside you can put all the tools that a young child might like.
I can make that for my lathe
Yes.
tools.
A glue gun, the little saws, and just a sharpener, just a little real starter kit for somebody who might be interested. But
Scott, I was thinking I could make that for my turning tools. Where did you get the plans for that?
I just made it. This is my funny shaped wood that I've talked to a couple of people about, but I've got plans for all of these bits, and it's going into a book slowly.
Cool. Well, we'll get you some publicity.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Chris, if it's of general interest, we can actually turn it into an article for the website if you'd like.
It'd be wonderful.
Great.
There you go. Yeah, no, I love it. I love all this, the way that we address tight spaces. Because I know my dad was, unfortunately, I've mentioned this before, we didn't see eye to eye from my age of about 18 months and onwards. But he was a woodworker, and he never worked in a space much bigger than about 8 by 12. So he had constant constraints on that through his whole life. In fact, being in the army, he moved from house to house, and it was basically often the coal cellar that he used as his workshop. So or a space like a coal cellar, not very big. So this and today's world, we smaller and smaller habitations. So if we're going to do this woodwork and working and spread it, then we need. I really get that whole thing about let's make it practical for people. So cool. Anyway, I've talked enough. Any other comments, suggestions, questions? All right. Well, I think one of the next, I'm not sure, but one of the upcoming presentations may be a little bit about how to make this saw bench. This is, again, a Chris Schwartz. It's in a Chris Schwartz publication. And I just made it, and it's a really practical little saw bench for hand sawing, and complements the tool chest really nicely. So I'm going to make another one of these. And I'll take some photographs, and I can show you how you do, or give you guys an idea how you do legs with compound angles like this, where you have both splay and rake, as it's called. All right. Thank you all for checking in, and for staying with us to the end. And for if you didn't, I still thank you. And we, as I say, we are going to be working on getting this to a thing where we can make it more accessible to people, and really make it more of a group experience where other people are able to have the opportunity to spontaneously not erupt, spontaneously kick in any time that they want.
Can I spontaneously kick in again, Paul?
Absolutely, spontaneously erupt if you want.
About a small stool. Can you see that?
I can't, no, because I can't see any screens right now. But
we can see it in the little one.
Yeah, I'll look at the recording though. But yeah, all sorts of possibilities for the future.
Yeah, fantastic.
Scott, send us your photos and we'll slide them
Absolutely, yes. I really want to get you guys contributing to this more.
Yeah,
So.
everyone send your progress photos or any UFOs to Paul, and we'll put them up on the screen during the next SIG and do a little who in the SIG is working on what.
That would be really nice. Yeah,
If you can hear me through my mouth.
We can.
you can. Yeah, let's diversify this baby and make it about you guys. All right. Well, once again, thank you very much for checking in, and I look forward to seeing you in is it 2 or 3 weeks? I think
Sounds
2
good,
weeks,
Paul.
and we'll welcome you back then. We'll probably be back at the shop at that point.
Thank you.
Cool.
Fantastic.